So, welcome back to my ramblings on what books I've read in the last month or so. So, we have again Dr. Doolittle, as I was mentioning. I used to read him a lot as a kid, and they just made a compilation of four bound books of all 15 of the novels, which I bought because my books were I had some of them I lost, and they weren't in the greatest shape. And on top of that, I just wanted to get the new ones. But this is a compilation of the first three books of Dr. Doolittle, and this month I just read one of them, The Voyages of Dr. Doolittle. So you'll see this again because once I read the second and third one, I'll be showing this book again. But I really enjoyed it. Again, it's been since I've read the Dr. Doolittle books. I don't know how long it's been, maybe 25 years. But and I actually there are some differences. They do change some things in the newer editions. In fact, even the editions that I had from the 80s were changed from the original editions. Basically, it's just there are different racial stereotypes that that they've changed. To be honest, I've read the originals. I mean, yeah, it's laudable that they're thinking of people. It's actually not as bad as some books were from that time period, but still, and some things that they've changed from the '80s edition to the edition today. Again, I know that they're thinking of people and they're trying to not offend anyone, so that's good. Now, this novel is it's what you would call a pastiche, I guess. Oh, actually, it's not even a pastiche because it's not like it's a Okay, I'll explain. So I'm sure almost all of you even have at least heard of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, well, in one of the stories, The Scandal in Bohemia, the antagonist isn't really an antagonist as in the sense of being a villain. There was a woman named Irene Adler who outsmarted Sherlock Holmes. It was actually the only woman who outsmarted... Actually, it was the only woman who outsmarted Sherlock Holmes, and one of the very few people who did in the stories, if anyone else did, because he really got the better of Moriarty, so he wasn't outsmarted the entire time. But either way, the point of the matter, though, is that the woman wasn't a villain. Okay, I'm not going to get into the story. It's a long story, but Carol Nelson Douglas in the 90s, starting in 1990 with this book, wrote a series starring Irene Adler. And talking about her adventures, and she basically solves different mysteries as well in these books. And Sherlock Holmes is a very, very peripheral character in this. She encounters him at least once in each book. There were 8 books in total, but he's not the star of it by any means, and he actually respects her as intelligent. Sherlock Holmes was never, how am I going to put this? He was always portrayed as being very logical and very, very analytical and not wanting to be distracted by women or anything else. And he doesn't like Irene romantically, because she's actually married anyway. But he likes the fact that she's very intelligent. He's a person that they use the expression, he doesn't suffer fools gladly. He's kind of arrogant and a little dismissive of people, which of course is not a good quality. But he does respect people who he finds intelligent, and she's one of them. And this is the first book in that series. I've read these many times. I really enjoy this series. The first 4 of them, because she wrote like the first 4 in the early 90s and the last 4 in the early 2000s. So she took like a sabbatical from the books, and the first 4 are on audio. I have the unabridged audio cassettes, which I digitize, so I listen to the audiobooks more than the reading them, because as I drive, when I'm driving to work, I drive throughout the states, do different from state to state or even into Canada. So I do quite a bit of driving, and so I can listen to audiobooks more than read. I'm doing more reading now because I have time, even despite like I'm studying, but I also have time to do secular reading because of the isolation and the virus. I'm not working or doing anything else. So those are the books. I have a few more minutes. I have another 5 minutes. I guess I'll go into a little description of them if anyone wants to hear them. If not, those are the actual books and that I've read, and I will talk about what I've read next month if I if I do read more books, if everything still is kind of the same. But either way, I spoke about the Irene Adler book. It's basically, this one is kind of, well, there are some cases that Sherlock Holmes is solving at the same time as this book is taking place, and she encounters some of the characters from those kind of things. Oh, I should have mentioned, I'm sorry. So she has her own Watson. When I say Watson, okay, if you don't know the Sherlock Holmes books, Dr. Watson was the author. I mean, in the Sherlock Holmes series, obviously, Arthur Conan Doyle wrote the books in real life, but it's told through the eyes of Dr. Watson, and he's kind of the chronicler of Sherlock Holmes' adventures. And with Irene Adler, there's a fictional, he's fictional too, but there's a character that Carol Nelson Douglas made up, Penelope Huxley. She's a very prim and proper young English lady, and she's actually 2 years older than Irene, so Irene's young as well at this time. But still, she becomes best friends with Irene, and she's Irene's chronicler. So this is all told in the eyes of Penelope Huxley. It's a very good book. Again, I don't want to go into too much about it, but let's go back into some of the books I just kind of brushed over. The Dune Buggy mystery. I did not know this, but these this particular book and two other ones in this series were actually reprints of a book series from the 60s called the Tolliver family. And they were a black family. I've never heard of them, but they were the only, or at least the only one I know of, but again, there might be more because I haven't heard of them either. But having a protagonist family be black in the 60s in a book series is kind of rare, and so this is a reprint of that. Just things have changed around, obviously, because it stars the Bobbsey Twins, and again, it's a mystery. Some of the things, actually, it does make sense, knowing that now, because some of the things, even in 1980 when this was written, or 81, I do remember that at one point with the prices of things, I thought it was a little cheap. And it explains now why it is, because it's word for word from the 60s. So, I know this one person gave Freddie, the younger Bobbsey boy, $2, and he bought 4 ice cream sundaes for his brother and their 2 friends. And that makes 50 cents a sundae. And when I was a kid around that time in the early 80s, I think it was 99 cents a sundae. So I remember even thinking, wow, that's pretty cheap. But I didn't know. And of course, this is way before the internet, so there was no way to know this. But, I just found it out maybe a couple months ago as I was reading these books. And I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. So there's that. I mentioned the Jane Austen series already. I don't think I need to go further into that. Dr. Doolittle, I didn't actually mention his premise. Again, I assume everyone knows who Dr. Doolittle is, but that might be a false assumption. It's a fantasy book for children where Dr. Doolittle is a person who can talk to animals. And in this book series, all animals, insects, every animal you could think of, they're intelligent. They can talk. It's just man doesn't know that and they don't talk to them. So he talks to animals, and basically, the book I read, The Voyages of Dr. Doolittle, he goes on a voyage with his young friend, Tommy Stubbins, the parrot Polynesia, and a bunch of different animals, and African Prince Bumpo. They go to visit. Well, they're trying to find a First Nations naturalist, Long Arrow, and they are trying to. Because he was missing for a long time, and they find him. They also find this huge snail, the great glass sea snail. Again, a lot of it's a fantasy period, obviously, but and it takes place in the 1840s. So it was written in the 1920s, and Tommy Stubbins is the one telling it. He's an old man now, and he was a little kid then. But again, it's a nice series. Throughout the series, they go to the moon even, and of course, this is way before man landed on the moon when it was written, so it's total fantasy, but it's really good. There are no antagonists in the series really. It's just adventures, and I really enjoyed it. The Mysterious Planet. Okay, I'm nearing the 10-minute mark, so I'm just gonna go over this really quickly. It takes place, I guess you would say, in the late 21st century, early 22nd century, and man has already explored the solar system. They have bases on the solar system, but they don't have hyperdrive or anything like that. There's a planet X, that's suddenly noticed beyond Pluto, and it's a long story, but there are aliens that kind of look like humans. They're not like bug-eyed aliens, but they look like, and they're from another solar system, and it's just about basically mankind meeting them, and there's and making peace with them, basically. Okay, I'm near 10 minutes, so I will let you go. I'm not making a part 3, so take care. Bye-bye.